Welcome back to Geoscope, your window into the forces reshaping economies and industries worldwide. In the landscape of global commerce, few names carry the weight, history, and cultural significance of Coca-Cola. It's more than a beverage. For many, it's a taste of home, a symbol of American capitalism, and a constant presence in over 200 countries. Since its creation in an Atlanta pharmacy in 1886, Coca-Cola has woven itself into the very fabric of American life, becoming a fixture of cultural moments both big and small. But today, that foundation is being shaken by a new era of economic nationalism. Tariffs on essential materials like steel and aluminum are forcing a painful reckoning for the beverage giant, impacting everything from its production costs to its long-term strategy. The pressure has become so intense that it has fueled speculation among market analysts that the company could even consider shifting its operational focus away from its US base. However, the reality is far more nuanced. This isn't a simple story of a company threatening to leave its homeland. Instead, it's a case study in corporate adaptation, a high-stakes navigation of political and economic headwinds that are redefining global trade. So let's dive into how tariffs, fractured supply chains, and escalating environmental debates are reshaping Coca-Cola, and what its struggles reveal about the future of manufacturing in the United States. 1. Coca-Cola's American spirit meets new pressures. For over 130 years, Coca-Cola's iconic red and white logo has been an unwavering symbol of U.S. culture, synonymous with optimism and shared experience. The company has weathered depressions, world wars, and countless economic cycles. But today, it faces a crossroads where its identity and its balance sheet are in direct conflict. The primary catalyst is the Section 232 tariffs enacted by the Trump administration, which imposed a 25% tax on imported steel and a 10% tax on aluminum. This move, justified on grounds of national security, immediately drove up the cost of producing Coca-Cola's signature cans, adding what analysts estimate to be hundreds of millions to their annual operational budget. This economic pressure is pushing the company toward a greater reliance on plastic PET bottles, a cheaper alternative that allows them to absorb the tariff costs without immediately passing them all to consumers. But this choice comes at a steep price, intensifying the already fierce criticism of its massive environmental footprint and placing it in the crosshairs of a global movement against single-use plastics. In public statements, CEO James Quincy has acknowledged this difficult balancing act, hinting at a necessary packaging shift. It's a classic corporate dilemma, a tightrope walk between delivering shareholder value through financial survival and upholding the brand's image through ecological responsibility. For a brand that has spent a century selling happiness, these are decidedly unhappy choices. The challenge isn't just about cutting costs, it's about protecting its carefully crafted image as a beloved American icon in an era of profound economic and social turbulence. 2. Supply chains under pressure. Those tariffs, especially the 10% levy on Canadian aluminum, set off a seismic chain reaction. For decades, American manufacturers relied on Canada as a stable, predictable, and geographically close source for high-quality aluminum. The tariffs shattered that stability overnight. Aluminum, prized not just for its lightweight but for its superior barrier properties that protect flavor and carbonation, suddenly became a significant financial liability. Ironically, its high recyclability had been a key pillar of Coca-Cola's sustainability messaging, a credential now undermined by the economic push towards virgin plastic. To soften the blow, Coca-Cola is scrambling to reconfigure its entire supply network. This involves exploring new contracts with the limited number of U.S. suppliers, who often can't meet the sheer scale of demand, and vetting new partners in non-tariffed countries, which introduces new logistical risks and costs. At the same time, they are accelerating their reliance on PET plastic, a move that requires retooling production lines and recalibrating their entire packaging portfolio. But the disruption doesn't stop with packaging. The new trade environment creates a ripple effect across the entire ingredient list. Key inputs like sweeteners, caffeine, and natural flavorings are often sourced from countries in Latin America and Asia. As the U.S. engages in trade disputes and renegotiates agreements, these once stable supply lines face growing uncertainty, threatening production with potential delays, retaliatory tariffs, and unpredictable price hikes. For Coca-Cola, the global pantry it relies on is suddenly looking much less secure. This constant unpredictability makes it incredibly difficult for Coca-Cola to maintain stable pricing, injecting yet more volatility into an already fragile global supply chain. Faced with this new reality, the company is making some of its biggest strategic shifts in decades, fundamentally reshaping its global operations from the ground up. 3 closures, layoffs, and the asset-right model. To adapt, Coca-Cola has accelerated what it calls an asset-right strategy. In simple terms, this means shedding its capital-intensive assets, the bottling plants, the warehouses, the delivery trucks, and doubling down on its core strength, creating and marketing brands. The company sells its secret concentrate to a network of independent or partially owned bottlers, who then bear the costs and risks of production and distribution. This pivot isn't entirely new, it's a return to Coca-Cola's original franchise model, but supercharged for the 21st century global economy. The goal is to become a more agile, less capital-heavy organization that can weather economic storms more effectively, a move largely applauded by Wall Street for its financial discipline. But this financial strategy has a very real, human cost. One of the most visible results is the planned closure of the company-owned American Canyon bottling plant in California. By mid-2025, the facility will shut its doors, eliminating 135 jobs and sending ripples through the local economy that has relied on it for years. This isn't an isolated incident. Globally, Coca-Cola has already cut about 2,200 corporate and regional positions. It also undertook a massive brand cull, scrapping nearly 200 underperforming products, including nostalgic names like Tab and health-focused brands like Odwalla juices. The result is a leaner, more focused operation, but one that raises painful questions about corporate responsibility, job security, and the fate of communities built around a single, massive employer. 4. Betting big on Birmingham. Yet it's not all retreat and reduction. While Coca-Cola divests in some areas, it's making massive strategic investments in others. In Birmingham, Alabama, the company is pouring $330 million into a new state-of-the-art campus. This isn't a sentimental choice, it's a calculated move. Birmingham's strategic location makes it a critical logistics crossroads for the entire Southeast, one of Coke's most important markets. This new facility will consolidate sales, distribution, warehousing, and fleet management operations that are currently scattered across the region. The project promises to safeguard 750 existing jobs by relocating them to this modern hub, while adding 50 new positions. It's a powerful counter-narrative to the closures, sending a clear message that despite a global restructuring, Coca-Cola is still betting big on American soil. This is the asset-right strategy in action, closing smaller, less efficient facilities and consolidating resources into massive technologically advanced superhubs designed for the future of logistics. 5. Environmental crossroads. However, as Coca-Cola navigates economic headwinds, it's sailing directly into a storm of environmental controversy. The company's operational decisions, particularly the cost-driven shift from aluminum to plastic for many of its products, are sparking a significant backlash. The logic is simple, but stark. Aluminum cans are lighter, cheaper to transport, and infinitely recyclable, with a global recycling rate of around 70%. Plastic bottles, on the other hand, are a primary contributor to global waste, with dismal recycling rates. For years, the Break Free from Plastic movement has named Coca-Cola the world's #1 plastic polluter, an unwelcome title for a brand built on happiness and refreshment. Environmental groups are pushing back hard, accusing the company of prioritizing profits over the planet and worsening an already dire plastic crisis. In response, Coca-Cola has heavily promoted its World Without Waste initiative, pledging to make 100% of its packaging recyclable by 2025, and to collect and recycle a bottle or can for everyone it sells by 2030. Yet critics argue these efforts, while well marketed, barely scratch the surface. They point out that recyclable doesn't mean recycled, and that the fundamental problem is the company's reliance on a single-use, throwaway business model. The real solution, they argue, lies in reduction and reuse systems, not just better recycling. This isn't just a PR issue, it's a growing business risk. Consumers, increasingly eco-conscious, are watching closely, and their purchasing decisions are starting to reflect their values. Meanwhile, governments around the world are enacting stricter regulations on plastic waste, threatening to upend the economic calculus that made plastic so attractive in the first place. For Coca-Cola, the challenge is immense. balancing the immediate pressure for cost savings against the long-term imperative of environmental responsibility. Getting that balance wrong could cost more than any tariff ever would. Between globalization and domestic policy. At the heart of all this lies a larger struggle, one that defines our modern era. How do global brands reconcile the decades-long pursuit of international supply chains with the sudden resurgence of domestic trade policies? For nearly half a century, the playbook was simple: source materials from the cheapest locations and manufacture where it's most efficient. This just-in-time model built empires. But today, that playbook is being forcibly rewritten by geopolitical friction. Coca-Cola's recalibration mirrors a broader, painful challenge for U.S. manufacturers across sectors, from automotive to electronics. Tariffs intended to protect American industries are, paradoxically, raising input costs for the very companies they were meant to help. This forces a fundamental rethink: where to source materials, how to reconfigure logistics, and even whether the U.S. remains the most business-friendly base. In boardrooms, the conversation has shifted from pure efficiency to resilience, sparking strategies like reshoring production back to the U.S. or nearshoring it to neighboring countries like Mexico to hedge against future shocks. It's a high-stakes tug-of-war between three competing priorities. First, national identity. For a brand as quintessentially American as Coca-Cola, navigating policies that push operations abroad is a delicate dance. Second, global efficiency, the financial model that delivered low prices and high profits for decades. And third, a powerful new force: environmental responsibility. Consumers and investors now demand sustainable practices, but longer, more complex supply chains carry a heavy carbon footprint, and greener materials often come with a higher price tag. Conclusion: Coca-Cola at the crossroads. Coca-Cola's story isn't just about soda. It's a bellwether for the entire globalized economy, capturing the precarious balancing act faced by every multinational today. The consequences are cascading. Tariffs raise costs, a burden often passed directly to consumers at the checkout line. Supply chains, once seamless, are now strained under the weight of global politics, creating constant uncertainty. Jobs are in flux, shifting as old plants become unviable in one country and new, often more automated facilities rise in others. And crucial environmental choices like shifting to 100% recycled plastic collide with harsh financial realities when tariffs make those sustainable materials more expensive than new plastic. And while talk of Coca-Cola leaving the U.S. is mostly speculation, the company's quiet, strategic pivots reveal the crossroads where economics, politics, and sustainability collide. It's not about a dramatic exit, but a calculated diversification of its global footprint to insulate itself from the politics of any single nation. This leaves us with a critical question, not just for a beverage giant, but for the future of American industry. In this new era of slow globalization, can a legacy company remain both profitable and responsible while staying true to its American roots? And if that balance becomes impossible, what does it signal for the future of U.S. manufacturing as a whole? What do you think is the right path forward for companies like Coca-Cola? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Geoscope for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world. Do you want me to also create a 30-second condensed version of this script for Shorts Reels?